We're in a series called All Rise. We've been in the book of Nehemiah. And we are on a journey to fulfill the calling of God on our church's life. And hopefully you're on a journey to fulfill the calling of God on your own life. This morning we're going to be more specifically dealing with our church and where our church is headed. And so if you're a visitor here, either you're going to like hearing about where the church is headed or you're going to say, man, I want to hear something else. But this morning we're talking about that. We're going to talk about where our church is headed and what's going on and what our role is through the book of Nehemiah, through his leadership, and how you could take part in that. You ever been on a team before? Anybody ever played any team sports? You can raise your hand if you want to. You don't have to. But this morning's message is called, It Takes Teamwork to Make the Dream Work, right? I didn't make that up, and you may say, that's kind of cheesy. You might have even heard it before, but it's true. It takes a team to do the whole dream work for all. And so this morning we're going to talk about team through the understanding of Nehemiah. I remember, being on a team. I've been on all kinds of teams since I've been growing up, and so team is kind of where I'm wired. Tyler said he's been on teams. It's kind of interesting how God put our staff together. Tyler played college basketball. Jeff has coached multiple high school teams. I was a collegiate cheerleader, and so I made the team. I quit. It wasn't my thing, but I was at one time. So they say, are you a collegiate athlete? Yes, I am. All right, so we're all into teams. JT plays team sports, but teams are a unique thing. And all of us have seen good teams, and we've all seen bad teams. Tonight we're going to watch two teams square up in the Super Bowl. And some of you all have said, man, I wish y'all were having your Super Bowl party. I do too. We just couldn't pull it off this week because of everything else that's going on with Night to Shine, so we encourage you to do that with your friends. But we've all seen great teams. Last week at this time, none of us knew, but one of the greatest teammates and leaders on a team was going to be dying while we were in service, Kobe Bryant. So a lot of folks have been thinking about teams and what teams look like. Now, if you've ever been on a bad team, you know it too, right? If you've ever been on a team that couldn't win. When I was in high school, my freshman year, I think we won one game playing football. And I thought, man, I don't even want to be on this team anymore. It was just a losing season. And then the next year, because we stuck together, we believed in the coach, we won 3 games. And then the next year, we won more than that. And then my senior year, we went to the state semifinals. And so you realize in teamwork, there's a process. We are teammates. We all have a place. 2 years ago, I played in the men's league in Rockwood. Tyler talked me into it, and I was just about to turn 40. I said, man, I ain't got time for that. And then your ego gets to going to you. Any athletes in here, you get where your body doesn't want to work, but your mind still works real well? And so he challenged me and said I couldn't shoot and couldn't play. He was a college basketball player. I was a college cheerleader, and so all those kind of things came out. And I said, you know what, I'm coming. And we went and we played. In the first game, I had to start because my ego got a hold of me. And I played approximately a minute and a half, took myself out of the game because I couldn't do it. I was cramping. I fell by the scorer's table. They were like, get up. I was like, my legs aren't working. And so I put myself on the bench, which created internal conflict because part of me believed in me. The other part of me said, you are not any good anymore. But I changed my place on the team. I became the coach. I personally became the coach of that team. And that was the year that we won the whole thing. We became champions. Now, you all say, well, you're just making fun. I'm not making fun because Tyler's tried to do it on his own since then. I retired. He hadn't won since. So I know my worth. Finding your place on the team is huge. And so this morning we're going to talk about what it means to be on the team, on God's team, on the team for doing things for Christ. What you do now, I want you to hear what I'm about to tell you. What you do now will echo through eternity. I know that came from a movie, but it's true. How you apply your life, your energy, your mind, your heart to now will affect the rest of your family. It'll affect your children. It'll affect your marriage, and it'll affect the future. Our men just got back from First Baptist Woodstock, and we were all down there. And it's interesting when we take guys for the first time, when they walk on that campus, they're just enamored with how big it is. An $84 million church campus that does everything and anything you can think of ministry-wise. Some of the things they do on that campus isn't even directed by their ministers. It's directed by local folks in the community that offer foster care, that offer things for addiction. They offer services from where there's no other place to do those services. The church allows them to do it there. when you walk into a 6,000-seat auditorium, it'll take your breath away. It's just cool because we don't ever see that around here. We argue about who's got the biggest auditorium, and we're only 200, 400, 600, whatever it is, and everybody kind of gets jealous. And then you go to a place just down the road, you can be there in about 2.5 hours, and they've got 6,000 seats in one auditorium. Oh, by the way, if you walk down the hallway, they got another 2,500-seat auditorium down there. And then when you go to the Student Center, you realize it'll seat more people than ours, and you go, how did God do this? And people go, man, you're right there in Atlanta. Not really. You're right outside of Atlanta. Well, somebody came in here and they were just able to start this. No, that's not true. That's not the story. The story was there was a church that called a pastor who happens to be my favorite, who is now since retired, but I heard him speak this week. When he went to that body, there was about 200 people there. How did he grow it? He split it first because he had to get rid of some dead weight. People that had their hands around its neck for so long, it couldn't become what it was supposed to be. And so he preached, and God did the split, and God kind of purged some people out. And then they said, we have to relocate. They relocated, and God began to bless because there was a vision. There was a vision of where they were and what needed to happen. There was a vision of we have to be here in this moment for Christ to change lives. And while we were there, there was a Catholic mayor, I believe he was a mayor, came up on the stage to talk to Pastor Johnny and said, this town would not be what it is had it not been, listen to this, for the church. The church changed our town. And so when you begin to understand that we can do all these things, we can expect leaders and legislation and government things to change a community, but that never is what changes a community. What changes the community is Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ is on a mission. And oh, by the way, just in case you have not remembered this, the way that Jesus gets his stuff done is by using his body, which is the church, which is what you belong to. You are a missionary for Christ in our community. And when we begin to realize our real goal isn't to come here on Sundays, but to go there on Mondays, it changes everything. Our real goal isn't to come to church and look around what needs to be done in here. Our real goal is to go out there full of the Holy Spirit and see what needs to be done there. Stop fussing about the carpet or the color, or you don't like this guy's attitude, and start looking about all the folks that are losing their life to sin and to hopelessness and destruction and say, that's why we're here, is to help those in need, right? And the church has become so inward focused over time that what we do is we have eyes for what's wrong in here as opposed to a heart for what needs to be done out there. But if you ever get your heart turned on what God is looking at, it will change people's lives. By the way, it will change people's lives when your eyes are focused here too, because that's where fights happen, that's where destructions happen, that's when people get hurt going to church. And if we have outward focused eyes and hearts, God can use people like that. But you got to be on the team. You got to be willing to see what the goal is. So now let's look at Nehemiah. I've got around 10 pages of notes. Apologize about that. But I'm going to run through it really quick. No, I'm not. Who am I kidding? I'm going to go as long as I can, all right? It takes teamwork to make the dream work. We've been dealing with the callings of God on our life over the past several weeks. We've been talking about fighting for your calling. We've been talking about hearing for your calling. We've been talking about looking for your calling. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about distractions in your calling. And we're going to talk about perspectives of your calling. But this morning, I want to talk about living out the calling of God in the life of the Grove and what that means. It doesn't mean that there won't be some things in here for you personally, but it does mean that there's something in here for us as a body of believers. Now, if you're on the fringe and you don't go to the Grove, I'd like to offer this moment just to say to you, this is the greatest church, I believe, in the history of the world and ever. And I believe this is a place that you ought to join. I don't believe there's a coincidence. I don't believe there's an accident. I believe God has you here for a reason. And if you're here this morning to hear about where we're going and what we're doing, you just happen to stumble in this morning, I believe that God did that intentionally. And I believe you owe it to yourself to really walk through that and to have a mind towards that, because it's quite possible that God has called you here this morning to attend church, to call you here for life, to help this place be the church. I've said it over and over, and I'll say it again. You'll get tired of it, and you may say it one day when I die. If all we were going to do is paint this building, God would have sent painters. But if you want to be world changer, He'll send world changers. And so you're here for a reason. And so as we look at the calling, there's no doubt that you and I have a calling. We will continue to talk about it and discuss it over time. And on Wednesday night, I'll get back to teaching this week on Wednesday nights and go through some of the stuff we've already talked about. But this morning is about our church together, what we're going to do together. We need to understand that we are members. We are in this together. This is us. Nehemiah got his own book in the Bible, but it wasn't just Nehemiah. He was the leader. He was the mouthpiece. He was the vision caster for what God wanted to do. If it wasn't for the people in Jerusalem, there would be no book of Nehemiah. There would be no walls rebuilt. There would be nothing for the glory of God. It took one leader to share the vision, and the people rose and did what God was calling them to do. And you need to understand over the next few weeks and months and years that this isn't Phillip Martin's project. This isn't Tyler's project. It isn't one individual person's project. This is God's project. You are a part of God's vision. And God has put you here to live out the vision. We pray all the time at the Grove to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. Well, you have the opportunity to do that. You have the opportunity to participate in the greatest moment of your life. I know that just this week when we walk through, there's all these men and women that are wearing these badges that say First Baptist Woodstock. They're part of the team, and we can only see the pastors. Johnny Hunt just retired, and then Jeremy Morton is the new pastor there. You can only see them from a distance, and had we really pressed into it, probably could have went and talked to them, but they're at a distance. But the people that you saw close that could help you, that were making it happen, that were serving the people, were the people that came to church there every single Sunday and came there on Wednesday nights, bought into the vision, and they are the hands and feet of Jesus. They are the ones that are there ministering. They are the ones that are serving. They are the ones that are going. And you have to understand this is all of us. It takes all of us working together in harmony and unity to see God achieve His calling on us. You need to write this down. The first thing the enemy will do to try to stop a movement of God, whether it's in your marriage, with your children, or here in church. Listen, you need to write this down. You need to have your indicator up and figure it out when you're walking through these things. The first thing the enemy will do when he wants to distract you from where God's calling you is he will sow discord and he will mess up the unity of the body. He will mess up the unity of the marriage. He will mess up the unity of the parental understanding. He will mess up the unity in the office. He will mess up the unity of the team. The first way that the enemy tries to distract and get you out of doing what God's doing is to absolutely plant disunity amongst the body. So you and your wife want to work on things, the first thing he's going to do is stir up old things. Have you ever noticed how when you want to work on things moving forward, you have to get past something old that doesn't even matter anymore? Where did that come from? Why is she fussing about that? Why is he fussing about that? And it makes no sense because you both agreed to work together. However, the enemy will sow disunity. You see it in churches all the time. You see it in homes all the time. And so we have to be people who fight for the unity of the body. God is going to achieve His calling through us. Now, I'm about to get to my points. This is just my introduction. There's a little point you need to write down. Here it is. For anything in your life. We're using it for the church this morning. I've shared it here before. If you understand the why, you can deal with almost any how. If you understand the why, you can deal with almost any how. Meaning this, some people are wanting to achieve certain things. They know the how, but they don't know the why, and it's hard to get people to get on board with the how if they don't know the why. But once you have passion for the why, you can deal with any how that goes along. Sometimes people don't want to participate anymore. Sometimes people don't want to strive anymore. Sometimes the husband doesn't want to try to work it out. Sometimes the children don't want to speak to their parents. Sometimes employees don't want to work it out with their brother or sister employees or their employer. They don't want to try anymore. Why am I doing this anymore? Why am I working so hard? Because they've lost sight of the why. They've lost sight of why it's important. They've lost sight of why you have to press in and try to love one another and stay married, or press in and love that child even though they're battling addiction, or press in and keep going to work when everything inside of you wants to turn the car around. You have to know the why. And if you know your why, if you know your passion, you can deal with any type of how we're going to get it done. And so you need to know that as we move forward. So what's the why for the Grow? Why us? Why us? Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to sacrifice? Why do we have to build? Why do we have to go in debt? Why do we have to deal with the objections? Why do we? Because God has given us a clear vision. The reason and the why is because it's not about us. Can I tell you this morning? The reason we are going forward, the reason that we are building, the reason that we're jumping off the cliff. Listen, guys, hey, this is the easiest church to pastor. Regardless of how many people come in those doors, it's the easiest church to pastor. I've said that, and I'll continue to say it. I've been on staffs where we had $18 million debt. I've been on staffs that were about to, the church was about to split. I've been on staffs where, they hated each other, they were jealous of one another. Even pastors, somebody said, man, that's weird coming from pastors. Pastors are the most jealous people you'll ever meet, aside from politicians. They're jealous of one another. They're jealous because you or me or whoever the pastor is gets to speak to people every week. They want that kind of influence. They want to move forward, whatever it might be. I've been in those situations where people want to hurt each other. But this place is so easy to pastor. We don't have any debt. I get up here and preach, and whatever you give, it goes straight to ministry, and whatever we need to do, we don't have debt here at the Grove. And it's fantastic. We get to spend everything we have on ministry and loving others, right? We don't have a staff that doesn't like each other. They love each other. In fact, we love each other so much, sometimes we have to fight off the wolves that are trying to sow discord amongst us so that we'll turn on each other. But we love each other. It's easy. And you guys are fantastic. It's so easy to pastor here. You guys are the best. Now, you're a little jacked up, but you're the best. You're the best. It's so easy. And so when you start to look at pastoring here and going, now we're about to jump off the cliff into some debt. We're going to jump off the cliff that if God doesn't come through, we're ruined. We're going to jump off into off the cliff of saying, oh, as we grow, we're going to need more staff. And we're going to jump off the cliff of knowing, I know this from personal experience. I know this because I've seen it in my own understanding. I know this, that once we jump off the cliff and we begin building, we will not stop because God blesses those who are faithful in the small things with greater things. This is a journey of a lifetime, and if we ever just sit still and just try to get along and don't take the risk, it's so easy. So you better understand that when I talk about the why, I had to be convinced of the why first. I had to be convinced. I have to be convinced that we're doing this because, folks, I'm just telling you, this is a place where I could just kind of keep moving along, let people come, let people go, kind of stay at that steady number that we kind of have. We fluctuate in and out, just keep loving people and retire one day. And we're pushing all the chips in. Why? Because God has called us to do something that many never in their lifetime get to do. God has called on this church not only to say yes, but to do it. God, out of all the people, and I know people are walking around, we're talking about Night to Shine, out of 655 churches that are participating, we're one of them here in little old Rome County. And now we've got churches out of Knox County calling, wanting to participate and all these other kind of things. And we walk around going, can you believe we got selected? Can you believe us, a bunch of rednecks, got to do this? I had somebody fuss at me going, I don't want to wear no tux down there for Tim Tebow's thing. I don't know what's wrong with my jeans. It's Night to Shine, baby. Dress up. Iron it, put it on, tie it, show up. Because about the time you don't, you'll be the only redneck down here in your tank top and cut off Daisy Dukes, and Tim Tebow will show up, and we'll be in a mess of hurt. We're doing it for others. It's fantastic. And then when you begin to look at this and go, God has selected our church, our body, this group of people who love people where they are. We don't expect them to come to us. We love them right where they are. We offer grace. We offer mercy. And God goes, I want to use this body, this part of my body, to extend further the kingdom of God. We get to go further. We get to reach more. That's the why we're doing this for King Jesus. Why now? Why now out of all time? Why it matters now? Well, it matters now because now is when God wants to move. How many more of us have to die saying we wish we had? How many more of us have to stand around and say somebody needs to do something? How many more of us have to see the need each and every day and say something should have been done, something needs to be done? Why should we wait? It has to happen now because, folks, listen to me. Each and every day that we live, there's another person and many people who are dying and going to hell, busting hell wide open because they've never heard the grace of Jesus Christ. Or maybe they've wrestled with salvation, but they've never had someone walk with them through it. They've never had that hope extended to them. They've never had that opportunity to bust addiction. They've never had the opportunity to see their family reunited and restored. They've not seen that. Why now? Because we can't waste any more time. We cannot put our own personal lives on first and say we'll get to it later. God has called us to move now because people need Christ now more than ever. He's called you. He's called me. He's called the Grove. So we have to go. That's the why. The why is because it's all about Jesus, because our community needs it. Our community needs the light. in the midst of darkness. Our community needs someone that offers not only advice but a hand. Our community needs someone who goes to places that no one else wants to go. Our community needs the hands and feet of Jesus Christ here in this community so that we can love people where they are. Instead of opening our doors and expecting them to show up, we open our doors and go to where they are in that moment. And God begins to change lives. So how did Nehemiah do it? Let's look at it. How did Nehemiah do it? It takes teamwork to make the dream work. So how did Nehemiah do it? When you begin to go, well, I don't know what he said the why was. You just write this word out beside it. Jesus. He's the why. And if you understand it's Jesus, you can deal with anything that he's going to ask you to do. So what happened here? Here's what we understand from Nehemiah chapter 2 and understanding why it matters now. And then I'm going to share something with you at the end of this, and we're going to get out of here. All right. So we understand in Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 11, Nehemiah came to Jerusalem first. He did all of his looking and assessing in the night. He went up and he saw what was broken down. He saw how things were left in ruin after Nebuchadnezzar's group had gone in and destroyed the walls, destroyed the temple, and ran off all the people or exiled them. So he begins to see it finally with his own eyes. And he also sees the temple that has been rebuilt during Ezra's time. And God confirms the calling on his life. If you remember this, now remember, you can't get away from this. The people, at the moment when he asked in chapter 1, how are they? And the Bible says that the men reporting back said, the people in Jerusalem are distressed and a reproach. Now you need to ask yourself a question. Watch this. This is so key in what we're about to do here. Guys, I cannot overstate this. And some of you are not going to get it. Some of you are going to wonder what in the world I was blabbing about this morning. But I want you to hear what I'm about to tell you. This is a spiritual matter. Where we're heading is spiritual. This is not a man-made cult. Listen to me. I'm going to tell you, like I tell my children sometimes when I'm trying to get my point across because they talk while I'm talking and they're too big for me to punch them anymore. I mean, I never punched them. All right, so I'm just kidding. I want you to listen to what I'm about to tell you. You may not realize this, and I don't know how much you stay in your Bible. I don't know how much you stay in prayer. I don't know, but I do a lot, and others I know do a lot. I want you to hear what I'm telling you. You have a moment in the history of your life to walk where no man has ever walked before, to go where no person has ever gone before. You're on a mission with Jesus Christ. This is spiritual in everything that we do. This isn't brick and mortar. This isn't screws and nuts and bolts. This isn't just relocating a building to another piece of property. What I'm about to tell you this morning is this. God has hand-selected who's going, where they're going, and what they're doing when they get there. This is God's mission and God's dream for this church. This isn't up for argument. This isn't up for your personal opinion. This is spiritual. And you're about to encounter things that are so spiritual that you cannot even imagine. You're going to have divine encounters with people. You're going to have divine encounters at your home. You're going to have objections, and you're going to have enemies that you never could have thought of. You're going to hit roadblocks that would have just never been there had you not walked with Jesus Christ. But I'm telling you right now, where we're headed, God is already there. Where He's leading us, we must go. He is doing a work here. This isn't one of those things where God just shows up and says, hey, if y'all want a bigger building, let's build a bigger building. That'll help you out. That's not what this is. This is a mission from heaven for Jesus Christ. Just like years ago when the church we just got back from stepped out on a mission from heaven for Jesus Christ, when a little old pastor stood in front of 200 people and said, I believe God's calling us to do this, and you look 28 years later, and in the very room, the last room that they built on that church, there were over 4,000 men standing in the facility, and there was about 4,000 men outside in other states who were having the same meetings through the internet, through simulcast, and it's all because men and women and families were willing to go where God was calling them to go. They were able to minister not only in their hometown, but across the world because it was God's divine plan. Now, where we're going is spiritual. And let me show you something that you have to see this. How were the people when Nehemiah heard about them? They were distressed. They were frustrated. When you think about distress, they were just kind of downcast. They had lost hope. Things were the way they were, and that's just the way it was going to be. You hear people say this in our community and other communities all the time. When you discuss things that need to change, then they wrap up the conversation saying, well, it's just the way it's always been, and it is what it is around here. And these men had bought that mentality. These families had bought that mentality. They were distressed because they could see what needed to be done, but they couldn't pull off what needed to be done on their own. They were distressed. They were heartbroken. Well, it is what it is. And God says it's not that it is what it is. I see things that can be done. Do you have the courage? Now, let me show you something else about people that refuse to walk in the spiritual understanding of Christ. They never see themselves as they really are. If you look at the people of Jerusalem, wouldn't you say they were victims? They were God's people after all. Didn't Nebuchadnezzar go in and take over town? They were God's people after all. Wasn't Nebuchadnezzar a pagan and did all these vile things and had Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego thrown in the fire? These were God's people, and Nebuchadnezzar came in. If you look at this and read this from a certain understanding, if you read it from a human standpoint, what we would say is these people are victims. Poor, pitiful people of Israel. Poor, pitiful people that are living in Jerusalem. Poor, pitiful, exiled people. That's the human understanding. The human has the great ability to victimize everything. We are the victims. Your circumstances is your victimization. Who your parents were, what was done to you, what the opportunities you can't get, what somebody said about you, how people are treating you, where you came from. All the things that makes us become a victim. And so we spend our life being a victim. I don't like that guy. You know what he did to me? I'm the victim. We've all got our sob stories to tell. And if you sat down with these people in Jerusalem, they had a sob story to tell. But I want to tell you what God says. From heaven, God's perspective is different. If you could ever get people that come to church to understand this is not a place for victims. This is a place for people to grab a hold of the cross and hope. And then work from that angle. Because from heaven, they were distressed and frustrated. And from heaven, watch, they were a reproach. Let it sit on you. I know you all just said, huh? They're sitting, feeling bad for themselves for what's been done to them. God in heaven's looking at them under reproach because they won't get up and do what needs to be done for the healing to take place. They're a reproach for God because when everybody else looks at them and their lives and the walls tore down, who does it make it look bad? Who does it make look bad? It makes God look bad. It makes God look like He won't bless His people. It makes God look like He's lost them. It makes God look like He's turned His back on them. It makes God look like He just let them sit in their ruins. It makes God look like He doesn't care that their walls are torn down. It makes God look like He's just said, that's it, I tried, it's over. It makes God's glory look bad. When God's people who know the blessings of God, who knows the strength of God, who knows what can be done, and know that nothing is impossible with God, won't get up off their blessed assurance and their victimization to go to work for God so that God can do something great in their city. Man, I'm preaching now. All the people that elbow say, man, I wish this was different. Boy, it was like this when I was a kid. Boy, I know, but who's going to do it? Blah, blah, blah. It doesn't, listen, God's not impacted by your I wish I could understanding. God wants to see people raise up in the middle of destruction, in the middle of shoulda, coulda, woulda, raise up in the middle of it and say, I may not be able to do it on my own, but I know that He can. God bless and do something through me in my time here for His glory, not my own. I didn't mean to preach this hard this morning. It gets me fired up. That's why you're not going to see me get down in the mouth and drag my chin around and go, man, I wish. I ain't going to be one of those I wish. I want to be one of those I do. I want to be one of those that calls on God to use me, to use you, to use this church to bring glory to Roane County for Jesus Christ. To do stuff in the middle of the way things are in order that we can see that the way things should be. So how do you do it? Well, the first thing that you do, the first thing that Nehemiah did is this, finding your place in the we. Finding your place in the we. Remember, teamwork makes the dream work, baby. Finding your place in the we. So he found them distressed in reproach. The walls have been broken down and nobody had even begun to rebuild it. You'd think you'd find at least one guy on the back side of the walls just putting up one brick at a time, but he didn't. And so what Nehemiah does is he goes and he surveys the land and he begins to look at it. He begins to say, well, this is what needs to happen and this is what needs to be rebuilt and this is where we need to put the most focus. He began to survey the land. But then he says this in verse 17, and this is where we want to focus this morning. He says, then I said to them, you see the bad situation we are in. That Jerusalem is desolate and its gates are burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem so that we will no longer be a reproach. The first thing that Nehemiah did was help people find your place in the we. It has to move from you to us, you to to we. It's not one person, it's all of us. The only way that God can fulfill the plans that He has for us is that if all of you get in on with all of us. It has to be a we. We have to be an us. This isn't an individual sport. This isn't a Lone Ranger understanding. The gospel of God always moves faster and further with a group of people huddled together to do great things for Him. One of the worst things that you can do is never find your place on the team. And I'm going to say something very provocative at this moment. Listen to what I'm about to tell you, and I mean this with all my heart, and it sounds counterintuitive to growth. But when you come to the Grove, if for whatever reason you say, I can't get on board there, I'm just going to slide in and slide out, but you never really want to be on the team and work with the church and find your place and help move this vision along. Listen to me. I mean this is as nice as I can say it, with absolutely no kind of hard feelings. If you can't get on board here with the we, then find you a great place to worship, sit under good Bible teaching, and get on the board there and be a part of the we. You're better served finding a place that fits you and your needs and your mind and your heart and the way you're taught and the way whatever it is. You're better served to find a place that you fit than to sit in a place where you don't fit and you're not a part of the team. You hear what I'm saying? I love you that much. I would rather see you go out into glory working as hard as you can rather than sitting somewhere where you're disgruntled all the time. God don't want that, and I don't want that for you either. You say, well, Phillip, aren't you afraid you'll run people off? Well, if that's true, it's already people that don't feel like they fit. Right? So you can't be scared of that. So I mean it. But now listen to me. I say this too. If you're going to be here, get on board with the we. You have a place here. You have a purpose here. Some of us even have seats here. This is where you always sit. That's okay. I'm a routine guy too. But get up off the seat and let's go to work. I'm going to tell you something else too. I'm just talking from my heart now. I'm going to be vulnerable. Stop waiting on me to put you in place. Well, I want to fit in there. Nobody will tell me what to do. Find it and go and do. Listen, I can't be all places all the time. I can't put you where you need to be. Listen, you have to take a little bit of initiative and get going. Find it and go. How do I get plugged in? Show up. Start asking questions. Don't be embarrassed. I mean, if you don't feel like you're getting plugged in, stand in the middle of the Sunday school room and go, I want to get plugged in. I'm crazy. Whatever you need to do, right? But get going. Let's go. Be a part of the we. Understand, here's how Nehemiah did it. Nehemiah said this, you see the bad situation. The first thing that we have to do is find your place in the we. And then, letter A, I've tried a number of them different, so that's one. Finding your place in the we. But letter A of the first point, this is so weird that I'm even talking like this. Here's what it is. You have to turn to we. We are in this together. There's no you or me in this community. There's no you or me in this church. It's we. You see the bad situation we are in. Understand what you need to know right now. If you have a perspective of you, and it's just you, just your family, it's just what you think, it's just your mentality, you may live your whole life that way, but you can never separate the fact that you are part of the we. So when we are in a bad situation, you're in it too. When we're in a situation that needs to change, you're in that too. Now, you may be able to go home and shut your door and put your garage door down or whatever you do over there. Go hang out with the cows or the sheep or whatever it is that you do and think you don't care and it don't matter and it's not affecting your house. But you're part of the we. And anytime they talk about Rome County, they're talking about you. You say, well, I live in Knox County. You're here this morning, aren't you? We. Anytime God looks bad in the community and you say, well, I had no part of that. It ain't none of my business. Yep, you're a believer. You're part of the we. Well, I'm not getting involved in that. I ain't got time for all that. Brother, let me tell you something. You're already involved. You're already involved. And if nobody's told you lately, we're brothers and sisters in Christ. You're part of the same family if you know Jesus Christ. This is your job. You do not have the luxury of turning a blind eye, not lifting the shovel, not giving your all. You don't have that luxury. That's not Phillip telling you this. If you want to sit around and not do anything, that's okay. I'm not going to come tell you or make you or drag you out of bed or say, hey, help us. I'm not going to do that. But I'm telling you something else. Our Father from heaven is watching. He's watching. And He sees all these little family members that say brother and sister and we're united and we're all going to the same place. And He sees that one little one that stands over here and goes, I ain't doing that. Ain't my preacher. Ain't my church, whatever they say. No, but He's your God. He's your Father. See, we've gotten this kind of mentality that we'll be a part of the we and the team as long as it benefits us. What if you work for the next year, your whole life? I was driving down the road yesterday with a bunch of guys who were riding back, and they said, somebody saw a house, and they said, that guy that lives in that house died. I said, are you kidding? He said, no. I said, didn't he build it as he went? Like it was a years-long project. He just started, and so he could stay debt-free. And they said, yeah. And then the saddest words that you could say after that was this. When he finished it, he died. Now somebody's going to move into the house he built. Somebody's going to move into the house that he spent years building. Somebody's going to move into the house that he selected the nails for and the doorknob for and the water faucets for. Somebody's going to move into the house that he set the hot water tank. Somebody's going to move into the house that he picked the carpet and the hardwoods and the cabinets that maybe his wife or kids said you shouldn't, but he loved them and so he did it. Somebody's going to pull up their car on the driveway that he hand poured and rolled the gravel for. Somebody's going to look out through his kitchen window to see the deer in the backyard that he said, I can't wait to retire here and sit on the back porch. Somebody's moving in. But I guarantee you, as he's standing in heaven, he would say this, it was worth it because I got to work on my dream. You say, Phil, why would you bring that up? Is it possible that you work for the next year and a half and you build something that God intended for we to build, but you never get to sit under its roof because he takes you before you ever get to walk in the door, but here was your mission, to be a part of the team, to get it to the promised land, and then he called you to the promised land. Are you hearing what I'm telling you? That sometimes you sign up to work on things that you ain't got the energy, the health, or whatever it is for, and God calls you home before you get to enjoy it, and you live a legacy that gets to benefit others that weren't even there when you were doing it, but you didn't do it for your glory, you did it for the glory of Jesus Christ. Are you willing to do that? Because I'm going to tell you something, I am. I'm willing to cut the red ribbon and fall over with a heart attack. I don't want to. Of course, my kids keep acting like they are. It might be long before that. Right? But it's a we. Guys, we don't have the luxury of making it about us. There's note number 1. Oh gosh, I got about 9 more, and I'm not going to make it. Remember this, when you don't want to find your place on the we, and you're a you people, singular focused you people, oftentimes are focused on the past and afraid to move forward to the future. The reason we cull ourselves out is because we're afraid of where we're going. Most people, and the scariest proposition in any faith-based organization is change. For whatever reason, faith people have enough faith to get to somewhere once, and then they don't ever want to move past it. They like what God did in a short amount of time, got them there, and then they don't ever want to leave where God took them in order to see where God can continue to take them. Churches are notorious for this. Change is the greatest obstacle for believers and church people. It's the great obstacle. Any kind of change. We like the way things are going. We like the way certain things look. But you have to remember, in order to get to where you are now, the stuff that you like, God had to take you from where you were. And more than likely, you liked a little bit of it. And God moved you. And so you have to understand that. It's why we say all the time around here, if your memories are greater than your dreams, then you're headed in the wrong direction. God is moving us forward. This is our church, guys. Listen, you got to find your place in the we. Make this personal to you. If you want to be the you, then make this personal. This is our town. This is our community. This is our church. Ours. This ain't your town. It's our town. This ain't your church. It's our church. This isn't your community. It's our community. We are all working together. You have to find out that God is using us all. Now, let me give you a couple of quotes. I need to move really quick here. And I want to say this to folks. This isn't about the Grove, although it is. For those that just struggle. I say this, and I didn't prepare my stepfather for this, so if he gets mad at me, pray for me today. I remember, he'll never hear it, but here's what I remember as a little boy. God hadn't called me to ministry yet. I want you to hear what I'm telling you. Can I testify for a minute? And some testimonies are painful. But I was a little boy, and I had been saved in my home church. And a man by the name of Dr. Sullivan had baptized me, and he told me, Philip, you're going to grow up to do big things. Now, what you don't know is there was a man by the name of Dr. Charles Redmond who was the pastor when I was born, and he held me on stage. I screamed the whole time. Can you imagine that? And he held me up, and he told my mom, and he told my family, this little boy's going to do something great with his life. And sometimes if you hear me baptized, I'll tell whoever's sitting there, I believe God's going to use you for greatness. Dr. Redmond poured into me, and Dr. Sullivan baptized me, and then a pastor by the name of Dick DeMerchant and a student pastor by the name of Steve Wright all poured into me. And I went to Canada on a mission trip, and we stopped at a conference that John Maxwell was doing. And if you know anything about John Maxwell was a huge leadership teacher. I sat there as like a 16-year-old, 15, 16-year-old, about my boy's age. And at the intermission, I told my mom, I said, I want to buy his book because something struck with me the way he was talking. I went and bought his book, and I went up to the stage. And in that moment, you could go see him. He was sitting up there, and he was accessible. So I walked up there, and I stood in line for the longest time. I didn't know this man from anybody. All my friends were sitting in the building that we were in, goofing off and doing all that stuff. I'm not throwing them under the bus, but they were. But I stood in line. Something just in me said, go meet this man. I go up, and I give him my book, and he said, Phillip. He did. He said, young man, what's your name? I said, I'm Phillip. And he said, where are you from? And I told him. And he said, hang on just a minute. And he clicked his microphone on with thousands of people. Stopped everybody. He said, everybody, please, if I can have your attention. I mean, there's thousands. I'm standing on stage like, I've done time. And he said, everybody, I want y'all to meet. This is Phillip. He said, what's your last name? I said, Martin. He said, this is Phillip Martin. He said, I just met him, and I just shook his hand. He said, but this young man is going to do something great with his life with Jesus Christ. He said, I just wanted everybody to meet him. Y'all going to get to hear about this guy. Just wanted you to meet him. And he clicked his microphone off, and then he went back to talking to me, and he signed my book. Sent me back to my chair. I went home, and that year, God wrestled with me about going into ministry. And I began to wrestle with it. In that same time frame, our church was being built. The new facility that we were building, we were moving from downtown to Simpson Road. And I never will forget, God was already starting His calling on me. I hadn't told anybody. I'd heard all these things. I hadn't even told my parents. I was already wrestling with it. And as you know, I really wanted to be a business guy and sell cars. But God was wrestling with me on something inside my spirit, and I just knew it. Our church was moving to Simpson Road. And in the middle of that, as our pastor was leading us at the time to build and move forward, my father's father became a you instead of a we. My grandfather used to come to church, and he would sit in the back. And he was there for years. He was a lifelong member of this church. And when the church decided to relocate, he said, I'm not having any part of it. I was here, I've been here, and this is where I'll die. I'm not doing it. He didn't like the way the pastor was leading. He didn't like where the people were going. And I'm telling you, up until the day that we left the church to relocate to the other church after it was built, he sat on the back row, talked about how we were making a wrong decision, and sat there. We moved, and he went home. And as far as I know, he never darkened another door of a church. He sat at home, aggravated, mad at the pastor, mad at the leadership, mad at everybody. He was old school. But what my grandfather didn't know was God was working on me. And in his anger and frustration, in his you mind, he was only concerned about himself. I'm not dogging him. I'm sure he's in heaven. But he was only worried about him. He couldn't see the we. And had he ever been able to see the we, that his greatest days as a grandfather were coming because his grandson was being called to the ministry to be a pastor, to lead other people. The whole reason he had been involved in church his whole life was to see God do something great, and he was doing it right underneath his nose. But he got caught up in the you part, and he sat at home in the greatest days of his life. His God, my God, went on to call me to ministry and put me here. And I think if my grandfather, at the time that he was mad and crossed his arms and went home to sit, knew that his grandson was going to be leading another group to relocate, and the heartburn and heartache come with it, I believe he'd been the first one, now that he knows what he should have known then, would be the first one out of the gate with the swords fighting off the wolves. He had a moment where he missed the we. Folks, I'm telling you, you can miss the we, and God will still bless. But the only person that you're missing when you miss the we is you're missing the glory of God in your own life. Why would you pray so hard and be so dedicated to get to the 100-yard line and stop? So you have to find the we. And I can promise you this church, this mission, this vision, Jesus is going to use us to do great things in our city. He's using this body. He's already, if I could tell you, and I don't have time because I got to get to this stuff up here. If I could tell you how God behind the scenes is already orchestrated. I had a gentleman that works at another church, if I said it out loud, in Kingston, come to me the other day and say, is there a place on your staff for me? I said, aren't you the guy that dogged me? honest. That God has already begun to put around our table other pastors in our community talking to us behind the scenes. Do I come up here and tell you all that? No, I don't tell you all that. I expect you to be faith people. I don't come up here boasting and telling you how God has taken down walls and how God is moving influence and how God is redirecting a lot of stuff that we walked through 3, 4, 5 years ago. God is already orchestrating it and bringing the players to the table, already beginning. You don't even know this because sometimes you hear from a disgruntled you that you don't understand what's in the we. God is already orchestrating where this church, you are becoming the number one influencer in Roane County, and you don't even know it. In a few years from now, it'll be 5,000 men sitting in our church getting to hear about the gospel of Jesus Christ, going back to their home churches to take the gospel that they heard here. That's what's happening here, and that's what's happening to you. God is so good. So don't let you miss out on the we. Now, let me move forward. Let's see. I told you I got all these. These are all real notes, people. I'm just going to do this. If I have my iPad, which I left at the house, I just go ahead and skip, and you wouldn't even see me doing this. It's so unprofessional, but I'm doing it right in front of you. All right, so here we go. Letter B. People miss out because they lose the vision. They lose the vision. See, he says, you see the bad situation we are in, that that Jerusalem is desolate and its gates burned by fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem so that we will no longer be a reproach. Nehemiah hit him square dab in the eyes. Guys, you're not a victim anymore, you're a reproach. There's people talking, why aren't you doing something in this town? Don't you love Jesus? Yeah. Don't you love what he can do? Yeah. Well, why are you sitting around all the time with your lip dragging the ground? Why didn't y'all start building these walls back? Everybody's waiting, but you won't do it. So I'm here to help lead you to do it. Let's not be a reproach anymore. How do you do that? Well, what happens? People miss out on it because they lose the vision. Proverbs 29:18 says this, where there's no vision, the people perish. It literally means where there's no vision, the people are unrestrained. See, what happens, this is a biblical principle. You need to write it down. It happens with your children. It happens in your marriage. It happens with your work. It happens all over people. When people lose vision, they become unrestrained. What does it mean to become unrestrained? See, because some of us want to say perish like they die, but here's what it literally means. It means to kick off restraint. It means that they are living life with no governor. When you don't see the vision anymore, you don't care what happens. When you don't see the vision anymore in your marriage, you don't care if your wife loves you or not. When you don't see the vision anymore with your children or addiction, sometimes people become so just absolutely hopeful that they're going to kick the addiction that when they relapse, they lose the vision and they stop trying. So when you lose vision of what God's doing, when you lose it and you miss it, you kick off restraint. It's why when you see, now listen, this is a biblical principle. When you see people who were once plugged into church or plugged into their marriage or once plugged into whatever, and for whatever reason something happened and they begin to fall away, they begin to say, I'm not going, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to be with her, or I don't whatever, and they start to back off. They forgot why they were in it in the first place. And here's what, listen to me. The moment you step away from where God wants you to be because you can't see it any moment is the moment you take the first step down the backslide of life. There's more people who have stepped out of church of anybody, any congregation. I did it. They stepped out to catch their breath because they were messed up for whatever reason it was, and they found it very difficult to ever go back. That's why many of us say this, well, I want my friend to come, but they had a bad experience over at this church, and they left, and they've never gone back. Why? Because they lost the vision of why they were doing it in the first place. So you kick restraint off in your life, and you're moving around like without a governor on your life. Y'all know what a governor is, right? It's something that governs the speed of the vehicle, so that even when you're going down a hill, that governor will just slow it down. Sound like a Jake brake sometimes, right? Or you're going too fast and the governor will kick on and it won't let you go any faster. Jesus Christ, His vision, His mission, His Holy Spirit is the governor of our life. There are things that I could do that I don't do because I know that it would mess up what God wants to do in my life. But the moment that I get outside of that and I don't care, my feelings are hurt and I'm all mad at everybody and I go, I don't care anymore. What are they going to do to me? My governor just came off. So what happens is people lose the vision. And people miss out because they lose the vision and they don't fight to get the vision back. So when they lose that vision, they miss out on incredible things because now they're running without a governor. And when they start running without a governor, they go deeper and deeper in their mindset. And it's so hard to plug back into where you left, whether it's marriage, at work, with your children. Some of us think that we're just going to step over here for a little bit and then we're going to come back. You'll never step back. You'll never make that movement forward. Why? Because things move forward without you is so incredibly hard. The hardest person to get into church is not the atheist or the man that's not saved. He's easy to get in church. He's never been. The hardest man to get into church is a man that used to be in church that stepped out of church and now can't face what he needs to face to come back. The man to get into a marriage, it's not hard to get a man into marriage that's never been married before. You take a divorced man, he's hard to convince. Right? It's not hard to get a person that's never been to rehab to go to rehab for the first time. The person that's hard to get to go to rehab is the guy that's been before and it didn't work and they stepped out. I'm just trying to tell you, when you lose vision for why you're doing what you're doing, when you lose vision for why it matters, when you lose vision of being the we instead of the you, when you lose vision of it, the restraint of your life will come off. And you can mark it down, you can write it down, you can set your clock to it. You find somebody that has lost vision in their life, whether it's at church, in their home, with their children, in addiction, I promise you find them, it'll start out real easy, just like I'm going to do this, and I'm going to try this, and I'm going to do this. But the next thing you know, you'll look up in a few months and you'll say, I don't know what happened to them. I don't know how they turned into this. I don't know what went wrong in their home. I don't know why they felt like they had to do that. And what happened is not the circumstances of what they were dealing with, it's the fact that they lost the vision of why they were doing what they were doing in the first place. And it's a biblical principle. The moment you lose vision, you lose restraint in your life. You find a man that's out of control, I promise you right now, he has no vision. He may have a lot of excuses. When I left my former church and resigned, I lost restraint. I had no vision. Couldn't see where I was going. And I was mad at everybody, especially church people, and it took me months to go back. I think that's why God allowed me to come here, because He knew I wanted to be back, but I struggled to go back because of all the people I had to face if I went back from where I was from. It's hard to do that. So you got to understand, when your governor comes off, you lose vision. So oh man, I got to finish. If you fail to see it before you see it, you'll never see it. Write this down. A man without a vision is a man without a future. A man without a future will always return to his past. Can I read that to you one more time? A man without a vision is a man without a future, and a man without a future will always return to his past. Check this out. A knife cuts because it has a narrow focus. Right? If you really want to lock in on the vision, have a narrow focus. That's what makes a knife able to cut. You can't have a focus like this. You got to narrow your focus. And if you say yes to everything, then you don't have a vision. You have to say no to some things. I've got a bunch of other notes. I'll tell you what, I'll finish this up on Wednesday night. Is that cool with you guys? Thanks. All right, so it's a spiritual perspective, and then here's what Nehemiah does, is he calls for immediate action. He calls for immediate action. So you are sitting in the greatest place on earth, not the grove, but in life. And God has called this church to do something fantastic. And guys, I just want to tell you, I don't know how long my life is. I was looking at my boys the other day because we were driving. They got their permits. And so they were driving, and I don't remember which one it was. But I promise you this. If you're contemplating salvation, let me take you for a ride, all right? It's scary, man. It's scary. And we were sitting there, and I said something about, oh, y'all going to kill me. I said something like that, and they said, oh, Dad, you're young. I said, I've already lived longer than I thought I was going to live. And they said, what? And I said, I always thought I'd die by age 30. I just thought I would. And I did, but a different way. That's when I died. But I thought I'd die by age 30. I said, look at me. Now I'm 40. I'm in the bonus. So if you're going to wreck, go fast. Because I don't want to just lay in a coma. Just go ahead and take me on out. I say that to you to say this to you. You're sitting in the greatest moment of history of your life, and you quite frankly may not even know it. You're at a place where God's given a vision to our church. We have a vision of going and relocating, building a bigger space so that we can accommodate more people, a place that can accommodate a school over time, a place that's going to be a refuge for addicted and afflicted, a place that people who are being abused can come and find the answers that they need, a place for the homeless, a place for the folks that don't have food to eat, a place that needs the wraparound services that come with things in their life that are going wrong, a place where marriages can come for the counseling of restoration. And by the way, just all this stuff that I'm spouting off to you, say, well, how long is that going to take? let me pull the wool back just a minute. We're already working on every one of those components so that we're ready to do it when we get to that facility. You don't know that because I don't get up here and tell you all the time, but I'm in a lot of meetings with a lot of different people in this church that are doing some great things. We're going to have a space where it's going to have fields that can accommodate for our little boys and girls that want to play ball. We're going to hopefully have the first track in Roane County that will accommodate our track and field folks that always have to go out of the county. We have a place that's going to be a launching pad, not only for dreams, and we want to see people come and live out their dreams, but it's going to be a harbor of healing. It's going to be a place where people can come and get their life back together, and ultimately it's going to be a place that makes much of Jesus Christ. And it's going to be a place that's known. It's on the map because of what's happening there. It's already started happening here, and so you have a part of being, you have a chance to be a part of that. Your name may never be spoken. Your family's name may never be spoken. You may not be standing on stage like me to be the mouthpiece, and listen, that's my only thing, is I'm just the mouthpiece, but we are the body. We work together. And I'm telling you, many people in their whole life do not have this opportunity. But if you can go with me to some places where you can see that it has happened, I'm telling you, trade every day that you come to church, everything that you ever do to be a part of a movement of God just like that, and you have the opportunity to do it. Once in a lifetime, you have an opportunity to do it. And I say that because maybe we get to there, and maybe I don't get to walk through the door with you, or maybe I don't get to pastor it forever, or maybe whatever it is. But I'm telling you right now, I'm willing to lay my life on the line right now to see that it gets done, because it might be my children that need the help. It might be your children. It might be your grandchildren that need the help. It might be your son or daughter that becomes addicted, and they need a place to run to. They don't need a place to run from. They need a place to run to. And we're building a place where they want to run to, and you're a part of that. How fantastic is that? And it takes all of us. It's a we. And just like Nehemiah stepped in, he said, how long are you going to look at your, and it looked like this, how long are you going to let people walk by and go, boy, it was great what they were doing, but what are they doing now? How long are you going to let Jesus Christ be someone under reproach because we're too lazy, or we're too in our own mind to rebuild it? When are you going to take up your hammer? When are you going to take up your mind? When are you going to take up your family and be a part of the process to rebuild what God began? And you have a moment to do that. So here's what we want to do. I want you to begin to pray. And you should already be beginning to pray. But here's what we say. Nehemiah said to them, come, let us rebuild the wall. And the people said, let us rise and do it. And the question is, will you be a part of that? Folks, the building's already built. It's done. It's already built. The future's already there. My question is, are you going to be a part of the process to get it there? Are you going to put your family on the line? Are you going to be a part of a once in a lifetime chance in this area to do it? Are you going to say, as Nehemiah and his crew said, let us arise and build? So here's what we want to do. I'm going to say all that to say what we're going to ask you to do this morning, all right? JT, come on up here. I called you by your right name today. So we have a little interactive thing that we want to do as a church family. Now, you begin to see all these blocks and all these things that are rolled up here. It kind of looks like kindling wood or firewood from a distance if you look at it that way, but it's not. And so what we want to do here as a church body for everybody that is here is we want to take time to point out that it takes all of us to get this done. We're building this together. We can't do it without you. Not one single family. We need everybody to be a part of this. I want you to want to be a part of it. But more than that, I think God wants you to be a part of it, and that's who you need to be praying to and talking to. And so what we have done is we have developed these little kits. And this little kit is going to be a symbol of your commitment to the future of the Grove and what God is building here. Not just you, but your whole family. And what we're going to ask that you do is you take these little kits home and put them together as a family over the next week. It's almost like a family devotion time, although it's not as difficult as that. What we're going to ask that you do is throughout the week, and whether it's one night or it's every night, you choose how you do it. But as a family, or if you're single, on your own, but make this block part of your devotion together. And the next week we want you to bring it back. And we are going to, as a church, rebuild the wall of Jerusalem or build the Grove together. And each week when you come back, you're going to bring your block and we're going to begin to put them together. And on this stage, we're going to build the wall back that's going to be a representation of us working together. We went from you to we, and I want you to see what you can do together. Now, inside your kit, they told me I have to be the one to explain to you what these kits are. You understand that is a bad mistake. Because I'm not very, I don't know. So inside your kit, and here's what we want you to do. We want you to take one as a family, so mom and dad or dad or whoever, to take one for sure for your family. Now, your children will want to do this, we believe, and so you could take one. Each one of your kids can take one. It may create more work for you, but each one of your kids can take those and take them home with you as well. Inside your kit, you've got a couple of different components, but our creative team has gone above and beyond to put this whole thing together, so you shouldn't need much to put it together. Inside your kit, you're going to find all the wooden sticks that come together to make your box. They look like this. There's not that many. I've gotten way too many up here. All right? I think there's 8 of them or something like that. Inside your box, you'll have those. And you have instructions on how to put these together. We've already put the nails in there. It's a little Bob the Builder kit. All right? It's going to be awesome. We'd love for you to take pictures, selfies, whatever it is, and upload them to Facebook as you're praying for our church and you're putting it all together. On the outside of your kit, you're going to find something that they call, I think they call it RAM board or something along those lines. And what you're going to do is, as you construct your box is going to begin to be constructed. You're going to just kind of nail it together at home just like this. Then you're going to take your RAM board, you're going to wrap it in there, and you can staple it on top. Just put it all together so that it is a perfect square. Once you get it done, it looks, well, perfect may be a little bit weird, but you've got a square box. And what we would love for you to do as you have been praying about this, and this is our moment. This is my contribution to the wall. This is my contribution. This is me and my family walking in next Sunday saying, we're in, man. We're with it. We've been praying for the church. We are with you. We want you to paint this box whatever color you want to. We want to let your kids, if they want to just go to town, make it rainbow. They want to put the Yankees on it. Don't put the Yankees on it. If you want to put, you want to draw yourself, you want to put a family photo on it, if you want to put your favorite Bible verse on it, whatever you want to do that represents you and your family. And next week, we're going to stand to the call of Christ on our church as we move forward. And each one of us are going to come and bring our block to this stage. And we're going to place it and we're going to put it here. And I want to show you what we can do as a body all together when we stand up, seeing ourselves for what we are, saying we don't want to be a reproach in our community. We are going to lift our family, our efforts, our individual is going to become part of the we so that we can build greatness for Jesus Christ. Now, this is going to be your kit, and after we get finished with the service, I want you to come get one. Just take it off the pile there. And if your kids say, I want my own, let them have them. Every one of them can, all right? And let them bring it back. Because, folks, I'm telling you right now, hear what I'm about to tell you. It's not a matter of if. This is already done. The question is, do you play a role in it? How about you and your family? How about making a commitment to your kids to build something they can't build for themselves right now? How about for me, I'm not only building for my children, but folks, my kids are 15. It hadn't got past me that in 10 years, well, so I want to build for my children's children. I want to be a part of a movement of people with you that does something so incredible in our community that we can only give Jesus Christ the credit. Because if I take my one block, I can do a little bit. But if we take all of our blocks in our families, we can do a lot of bit. And God is going to use you for greatness in our community. Is that okay? So here's what I want to do. I want to finish up this sermon this morning by praying for us. And I want you to begin to pray for your family. And it may be that God is doing something in and through you that never benefits you. The pastor that baptized me said this to me. I went back to see him years later. He came and was an interim pastor at a church I was working at, and I was never so grateful in my life to see somebody that I loved. And I was struggling, and I said, I've put in all this work, but I feel like God's calling me somewhere else. And He's given me some of the greatest words I've lived. I didn't write them down, I've just kept them. And I want you to hear me when I say this. He said, Phillip, you don't always get to sit under the tree you planted. Folks, I can't tell you what's going to happen in the next year, but I can tell you this. God is on a mission to do something great in our community. And the question is, will you be a part of it? Or are you going to drive down Highway 70 and say, man, I wish I missed it. I missed it. I could have been there. Are you going to be sitting at home one day and your kids are going to the place that God built that was intended for you and your family, but you decided to become the guy that crossed his arms and said, I ain't doing it. You became a you instead of a we, and you missed the blessing. Or are you going to be a spiritual leader of your home and go, I know when God's working. I sense where God's working. Like Henry Blackaby said, find out where God's moving and go there and lead your family and leave a legacy of faith, not only in your home, but in your community. And it's quite possible, folks, we get this whole thing built and we get it put over there and there's people coming, and maybe we don't get to sit under the tree that we planted. But I can promise you this, if Jesus Christ is the one that's building it, He will constantly water it, and He'll give shade to those that need it. So would you and your family join us? Let's pray. God, I love you. It's exciting in my heart. Oh, man, it's so exciting in my heart. I wish, Jesus, you know how I pray. You know what I say all the time. I wish I could take a dose of what's in my heart and the excitement and just a little bit in each and every person in here. Just so they could see what I see what you've given us, that they could dream a little bit. God, that people would understand maybe we're a part of a vision, not because of the circumstance that we're in now, but because of the circumstance we will be in later that we don't even know about. God, I'm so thankful that the men and women of Nehemiah's day stood up and said, we're not going to be a reproach anymore. We want our place, our city, to be a place where people come and say, wow, God is on the move. Look at the blessings. God, I'm so thankful for you. And so I pray that you would draw our hearts together, that we'd be that we'd be unified, that the yous in here would die away, but we would be a we for you. God, do great things in our community. Do great work in our church. Work in our families. Work in our children. And God, in the generations to come, make this a place where others experience the love of Jesus Christ. And God, before we go, if there's anybody in here that doesn't know you as Savior, I pray that today be the day of salvation. I pray that you would absolutely rip in their heart and their mind till they come and acknowledge you as the King of Kings and the one who forgives us sin. We love you.